You're listening to episode 644 of the Father Bills podcast. Welcome back. This week's episode is entitled, We Are Christ's Flock, Friends, and Children, and given on the fourth Sunday in Easter 2018. So just as a simple test to see if you are listening to the gospel, fill in the blank. I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd, blank. Knows his sheep, as well as lays down his life for the sheep. That's right. On that same theme, complete this. This is another part of John. It's not the same space, but it's the same verse. No one has greater love than this, than to lay one's life down for one's friends. So a sheep, a shepherd, a friend. Who are the friends of Jesus? Who are the sheep of Jesus? Well, the answer is we, of course. I hope. We as sheep, well, if you qualify in these areas, you can say, okay, sheep are not the brightest, right? And children don't always listen to their parents. So, if that's you, then welcome to the flock and welcome to the family. Well, and these are deep realities, actually, and these analogies help us try to grasp culturally as well, because, of course, in the time, shepherds and sheep were very prominent. So, we are sheep of a flock, we are children of God, and we are a friend of Jesus. Now, that would be the right answer to a test. My question to me and to you is, do we believe this? Do we really believe that we are a friend of Jesus? We hear that I know my flock, basically, mine, and mine know me. Do we know him? That's the question. And same thing with friends. Do we know each other? What do friends do such that they would say they know each other? And how do friends interact? Is that the relationship we have with Jesus? So if we are a sheep, do we truly listen to our good shepherd? With a capital G and a capital S, the good shepherd. See, the relationship between the shepherd and the sheep is an intimate one, such that the sheep knows the voice of the shepherd and will not listen to anybody else. We hear that in the scripture, but any shepherd would tell you that. If you suppose he's sick, or a shepherd is sick, and they call the sheep. They can't, or they get a substitute, and that substitute calls the sheep. Good luck with that. It's kind of right. At high school, you get a substitute teacher. Well, we know what happens, right? I was there too. I was a substitute teacher. I was really nice to our substitutes. So, this is important. Are we tuned to his voice? Are we tuned to his voice? When he speaks to us, do we hear it? Now, I'm not talking about locutions like, I'm hearing voices. But no, most likely he speaks to the innermost deep part of our heart, our soul. Can we hear him? And more important, do we listen to him? Because there's one thing hearing, like I can hear noises. I can hear people talking or whatever. But do I listen? Listening is then an active, beyond hearing, it's a doing. I hear it and I obey it. Children are being called to listen to their parents. Not just hear them. We know parents, right? Our kids hear us all the time. Well, I'm not a parent, but they hear you all the time. Does that mean that they listen? No. Not all the time. But good kids do. Right, guys? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just nod your head. That's good. Yeah, okay. Now, as children, do we recognize these things? That children don't have power in their lives to affect much. They don't have all the answers to things. They are limited in their abilities. Do we comprehend that in us, even though we might be adults? Knowing that the Lord knows more than we do? Do we seek him out for guidance? Or do we have it all figured out? I know what I'm doing. I don't need to ask anybody. And that's the MO that you walk in. I mean, there's sometimes you're an expert at something. I get it. But we're not an expert at everything. This is the temptation of a pastor. People come to me all the time, ask questions. What about this? What about that? Is this a sin? And what about this? And what's the church teaching about that? I got to be a walking cornucopia. I got to be a walking encyclopedia. A couple months ago, I was with our staff, our pastoral staff, and there was a question that was brought up. And I'm like, inside I knew I had no idea. It was so complex. I was frustrated because I couldn't come up with an answer or even an opinion, because I have opinions, but I couldn't even come up with that. And I just go, I just stink at this job. And everybody roared and laughed at me. And they're like, thank goodness, Father Bill, because you know what? That's good to hear. You know? I'm not God. And neither of us are God. But sometimes we might behave that way. Sometimes we will even listen to ourselves and deceive ourselves. Talk ourselves into something. It's going to be all right. This is okay. God, just blink. I'm going to go do this. It's okay. We've got to be careful listening to our own voice. Let alone all the other voices that are on TV or like you get on the internet or, goodness, I delete like 150 emails that are just junk mail every single day, or actually multiple hundreds of emails a day that are just nonsense to me. They all want my attention, and I always scratch my head. How'd they get my email, right? By the way, one of the easy ways they get your email is that someone emailed you in a big list of everybody else, and everybody sees those addresses. Carbon copy. If you're going to list a lot of people, don't carbon copy. You're not doing anybody favors. In fact, you're opening everybody else open to spam, because emails are in the open. Anybody can snag those in the middle somewhere. And all I need is one person to give away that list to somebody else for money, and now we know why we're on that strange email list. So all of these images, especially a shepherd on Good Shepherd Sunday, speak about being called. A shepherd calls to his sheep to direct them where they need to go. So that means we're the sheep and we're being directed where to go. We are being called by God to live a certain life. And if we live that life, I want to tell you a few things. You may already know this and figured it out, but it's not going to be glamorous. It's not going to make you famous. It will require sacrifice. And you may have to give up some of your time. You will have to let go of some self-centered goals or dreams. Maybe some of those dreams have been implanted for you for years. Just have to let go of it. Some may require us, because of our recognition of our call, to leave their jobs because they're incompatible with a Christian life. Or they're being called to a different life. I used to be a math teacher. I left being a math teacher to join seminary. Although it was really weird, this last week I had a person who did call me and said, "Hey, Father Bill, I got this math question. I'm trying to figure this out. There's a function, and I'm trying to figure out why it is when you add numbers into the x the y keeps getting smaller as the x gets bigger." I'm like, "Can you help me out with that?" I'm like, math comes back to me. I'm like, we worked it out, but I'm really not a math teacher anymore. I am a full-time priest. But we need to be mindful of the things that are in our lives that may be obstacles to our calling. And I think we all have them somewhere. Now, and again, if you choose to live the life, know again, you will be mocked for your service. Mother Teresa, she left everything. She was mocked heavily for her service. From people of goodwill, even. She just picked people off the streets of Calcutta, scooped them up, put them in a bed, cleaned them up, and just prayed for them till they died. Whether they were Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, didn't matter. She was criticized that she would not proclaim directly the gospel of Jesus to them, and yet she saw Jesus in each one of them. Some people complained that, well, you're not doing enough health care, you're putting them at risk. I'm thinking, her one role is to pick people that are already dying and give them a dignity in dying. So in this journey of living this life, there's going to be some challenges to compromise your ideals and your faith. And people won't understand it. You may find yourself isolated because of it. I say this because I've lived it myself. Some may leave you. Some of your quote-unquote friends, which is a sign that probably they weren't friends anyway. See, a good friend makes you the better version of yourself. And if this friend wants you to continue to compromise yourself, it would be better to jettison them anyway. And so you may have to choose to be the one that leaves. Some will want to persecute you, call you names, spread rumors. I know that myself. I've had that happen myself. Remember that Jesus himself was the stone that the builders rejected. You know, the Sanhedrin, the people of the time, the leaders. But know this, while it may feel lonely, you are not alone. Let me say that again. You may feel lonely because of your walk with Christ, living the life, but you are never alone. Remember, a shepherd lays down his life for his friends. You're his friends. And he will lay his life down for his sheep, and you are his sheep. And so when you live the life, people will understand that you've chosen to live the commandments. And we say, what are the greatest commandments? Love God and love your neighbor. And that is a vocation every one of us have. To call, when Christ is calling us to be his sheep in this image. The word vocation is Latin for vocare, to call. And it may put you in a place where you're not expecting to go, which, by the way, I must tell you, it's kind of exciting. I mean, it's stressful too, but I mean, just you know that I'm going to go on this amazing adventure, and it kind of lightens things up. But we are called to align ourselves with Jesus. Our baptism starts that. We're grafted onto his life. But see, to be a good sheep means to submit oneself to the shepherd. Sometimes I think we're too smart for our own britches. We get so smart that we become arrogant. I never thought I could actually finish high school, because I'm average. Actually, when I finally got my IQ test from preparing for seminary, yep, it was confirmed. I'm average. I'm not the sharpest tack either. When I was ordained, I would have never believed you. I have 3 master's degrees and a bachelor's in science. I got 2 degrees from Oregon State, go Beavers, and 2 from Mount Angel. I never stopped going to school. I mean, I knew it was important, and I struggled. I worked real hard because of the calling I had received, and I know I needed to do my homework to be part of this. That was my sacrifice. Hours of math. Now I can at least look at a budget. Hours of classroom management so I can manage a parish. Hours of theological reading so I can help guide and understand what the church is teaching. Hours of prayer so that I myself will be conformed to those teachings. And then spiritual formation so I'll be humble to live the life. And oh, by the way, that's also your job. That is to keep me humble. You have a right as parishioners to correct me, to help me, to woo me. And I want to tell you, you do a good job. I want to thank you for that. I am the person I am because of you. And the parishioners at St. Anne. And the parishioners at St. Anthony's and the parish before that. And the St. Joseph before that. I especially am appreciative as a priest on this Good Shepherd Sunday for when you come to me in humility to try to solve something, as opposed to, here, Father Bill, here's the Rubik's, you're messing them up right here, you're screwing it up. I'm a human being. I don't generally respond to threats well. And having been bullied in my childhood, I will not even tolerate it. So that probably is a good idea, just not how. If there's a correction to be made, please say a prayer and come to me gently and woo me into submission. Okay? But on this Good Shepherd Sunday, I look at my own vocation and ask myself, how am I doing? Well, I answer the question, well, I'm really busy more than ever been. There's this big yellow building now that's called St. Anne. It's a new church. It's going up. By the way, if you didn't get a chance last weekend, it's too late now, but we opened the doors of the building, or the gates, I could say, the fence, so you can come in and sign the beams and the walls and prayers. It's pretty awesome what's going on. This church is going to be glorious for God. Not for me. I'm just part of the plan and part of one of the cogs in the whole system, but it's for God. In fact, the Archbishop, I think I've shared this, the Archbishop said, this is going to be a great legacy for you. I'm like, my response, with all due respect, Archbishop, I don't even care. I mean, I'm kind of pushing back at him a little bit. Not because I disrespect him, I do respect him. But I cannot possibly, it'd be so dumb to put my personality into that whole thing. Like, look at me, look at the thing I just built, right? Whoa, that's dangerous. Bad news there. So while I'm busy, I just ask for prayers. And I ask for prayers for anybody who is already serving as a priest, Father Tetzel, who's been given his new assignment. And here's the rumor. It's the Vatican. No, it's not actually. But just keep saying that. When he comes next, say, hey, I hear you're going to be at the Vatican. That's awesome. Father Bill tells us that. I think he told everybody today at Mass the new church, or the church where he's going, his new church he's going to, has, what is it? A lot of brick and no lawn, or something like that, right? Like, that sounds like a pastor to me, low maintenance, But pray for those who are to be ordained in June. And please pray for the young men who are being called to priestly service now. Because think about the environment we live in. Is it friendly to that? Is it actually open to a guy saying, yeah, I'm thinking about the priesthood. What do you think people are going to say to that guy when they hear that? Oh, I've heard it all myself, because it hasn't changed that much. And I've heard it from some of my Protestant brothers when I was in college, because every Wednesday somebody would give a testimony at the end of dinner. And their comment, like, this is what I did, and this is why I came to Jesus. And so when it was my turn, I said, well, I was born and raised, baptized as a child. I love Jesus. I'm using also the lingo they use. I love Jesus. He's my personal Lord and Savior. And when I'm done here at Oregon State, I hope to either be a computer engineer or a Roman Catholic priest. They're like, what? So I had a lot of guys come to me like, you're Catholic? I thought you were Christian. Yeah, you've heard that too then, huh? Okay. Yeah. And in love, I said, you know what? Did I not already describe what was needed to be Christian to you? What do you need to hear? And actually then if there was a question about me being saved, because sometimes like you're not being saved, when I'm snarky and probably need to go to confession, my next response would have been, I'm so glad it doesn't matter what you think. Right, because you know who matters? The Good Shepherd is who matters, not anybody else. My life has nothing to do with how I please you in a sense, or anybody else. Though I want to please people, we all do. We have to be honest about that. We've got to let go of that, submit to the Good Shepherd, and do what he tells us to do, because then we become the best version of ourselves. Those things that need to be honed can be honed. They can be, or sharpened, whatever needs to be done. So when we listen to Jesus, who is a good shepherd, he wants us to do some things. And it's not sitting on the couch, eating popcorn, always watching movies or video games. As a friend of his, as a sheep, as his child, he wants us to live a full life. He has come that we might have life in the full. So my question then becomes, well, how can we do all this stuff? How can we be all that we can be without joining the Marines, right? Because that's their motto. I mean, you can do that too, and the Marines need some good chaplains and good Catholics in there. How do we be a friend, or son, or daughter of God? How do we be this sheep in this flock? Well, I'd like to propose you're doing it now. This very presence of yours in this church here is the beginning of that and part of this journey. That is, we've listened to the Word of God. We've heard the Scriptures proclaimed. And hopefully maybe something I'm saying makes some sense to you, or maybe encourages you or challenges you. And by this listening to these things in the liturgy of the Word, maybe we'll be more willing to obey the commandments. And then later, the second half of Mass, the liturgy of the Eucharist, we recognize that Christ, the Good Shepherd, was slain for us. And that being martyred on a cross becomes present to us. And when we receive the Eucharist, it is the crucified and risen Lord. And by receiving him, we are conformed to him and become more like him. And we can do things we couldn't possibly maybe do before. Why? Because we've been given supernatural grace. So the presence of the liturgy of the Eucharist and the presence of the Christ in the liturgy of the Word helps us to participate in this contemplation. And more than knowing with our head, we commune with him. We commune with him. And when we do so, then he gives us a call, and we can more readily hear it. And that call today, I can tell you this. I'm very hesitant to tell people what God's saying, but I can tell you this, that after this Mass, we are being called to go out and share the gospel. You'll hear that at the end. The Mass is ended. Go proclaim the gospel of the Lord. It is the call. It is what this is called, the Mass. It's called that because the word Mass means mission. We're to receive all these graces and push out into the world and change the world with our love, our kindness, our faith, so that others can come to know the Good Shepherd.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bill's podcast. As always, if you have any questions or comments or want to share anything, just go to my website, fatherbill.org. That's FRBILL.org. And there you can find my Twitter account, Facebook page. You can email me from the page there as well, and I will do my best to get right back to you. And until next time, may God bless you and have a great week. Bye-bye.